Okay, so in my last video on this channel, I talked about why and how I got to be self-employed and why I wanted to be self-employed, and a little bit about why I have two businesses. Today I want to tell you about the second business, the party rental company, which is what eventually this channel will be primarily about, and why and how I got into the party rental business. And it's a little bit of a long story, and I'll try to tell it as fast as I can, but if you'll bear with me, there's a reason that I think you might want to hear this story, no matter what small business you're thinking of starting on your own. So the original idea was that we were going to start a brick and mortar arcade. That we were, it was going to be one of those places where it's got all the old classic arcade games from the 80s, but it was going to be set up where, you know, you pay 15 or 20 bucks to get in, and all the games are set to play for free, and you know, there's a snack bar and that kind of thing. It's a great family place. But we ran into some serious obstacles. Number one is when we started to look for it, a place to put the arcade after I had collected about 30 games. We realized from talking to several people, including somebody that had worked for me previously when I was in retail management, and they were now working for City Hall in the zoning office, that the city that I live in has this really strange law that they treat arcades the same way that they do like a poker room or an 8-letter gambling room or something like that. And you can only put those in industrial areas, you know, where there's warehouses, and the only people that are going to be driving by and seeing that business are plumbers and electricians and forklift drivers and diesel mechanics and, you know, that kind of thing. This is not the place where people are going to take their kids for birthday parties. The other thing that happened about the same time is that COVID hit, and of course nobody is going to want to take their kids to an arcade where everybody's touching the controls of the game when there's a pandemic going around, and people weren't really sure at that point how serious it was or was not going to be, and that kind of thing. So I found myself having about 35 video games. I don't remember exactly how many, and nothing to do with them. The business idea, at that point, we just decided, you know what, this probably isn't going to work. And so I was about to sell off all the games except for, you know, a few that I was going to keep for me, the ones from my childhood that I really liked. And this couple, who is some of our best friends, was having dinner with us one night. We were, you know, kind of kicking ideas around, deciding what to do. And the guy says, you know what you should do? You should get, you know, put a couple of these games in your enclosed trailer and rent them out. And I thought about it, and, you know, it's a 6 by, I think it's 6 by 12, might be 6 by 10 enclosed trailer. And it's got a really low ceiling. Some of the games wouldn't even stand up in there, so I couldn't do it like a gaming trailer. And I didn't feel like I could physically handle, and like the games would stand up to, you know, me taking them out of the storage unit, load them on the trailer, taking them inside somebody's house, taking them back out, back in the trailer, back to the storage unit, back out. You know, that would just be a mess. And then there's your trying to bring these games through the door of people's houses or into their backyard, and you bump the wall and nick it, and I mean, it just would be a nightmare. So I'm like, I don't know, I don't think that'll work. And his wife said, well, what if you had a bigger vehicle, or a really big trailer, and you could set up the arcade in there and have the games to where they're secured and they stay in the bus, which is what we ended up buying. And you could just show up at the party, throw a generator out on the ground, hook it up, and they pay you to play the games. And I thought, that's a fabulous idea. So I bought a bus. I bought a school bus. Found one online for a reasonable price, and stripped all the seats out of it, added new wiring, a couple of breaker boxes, AC units, whole 9 yards. And I was the only mobile arcade in my town, and it did really well the first year. We averaged probably, I don't know, anywhere between 3 and 6 bookings a month, which is, for that small of a business just starting out, was pretty good. I made some decent money. The other thing that I did was, I had the idea, if I'm already going to somebody's house for their birthday party, that, if I had a few tables and a few chairs and maybe a cotton candy machine, that, I could rent them those things too, because they might need those things for a party anyway. So I bought that stuff and I started doing that, and like I said, the first year it did really well. And because I was still, and to this day, still running my windshield repair company, we lived on that and what my wife was making with her business, which is a completely different business and a completely different story that I might tell at some point on this channel. But I was able to invest all the money that I made with the mobile arcade, and I bought more tables and more chairs and a snow cone machine and a popcorn machine and some of what we call yard games, cornhole, giant Jenga, giant Connect 4, bocce, ring toss, things like that. And like I said, it did really well the first year. The second year, I guess people had seen my advertising and I got some competition. There were 6 people that launched gaming trailers, and these were, far bigger trailers than the little 6x10 enclosed trailer that I had. And they had like 6 or 7 40-inch flat screen TVs, and either Xboxes or PlayStations, or maybe some both of them. And they were doing that, and yeah, that wasn't the classic arcade games that I had, so it was a different idea, but it was direct competition for me. And I went down from the 3 to 6 bookings a month to, I think for the whole year I averaged 1 booking a month for the bus, and it just barely paid its own bills. The insurance, the diesel, the oil change, a tire that I had to replace, which, by the way, tires for buses are expensive. It's like $500. But something happened over the year, and I started renting out more and more tables and chairs and cotton candy machines, and that started to grow. And it wasn't wasn't huge, but it did more than the bus did. And I realized that even though I was emotionally invested in this bus, because it was all the games from my childhood, because a lot of the games I had bought and repaired, got them working again, some of them I kind of even built from scratch, and I had done all the work remodeling the bus myself, stripped the seats out of it, whatever. I was really emotionally invested in it. And I thought it was a cool idea, and all of my customers thought it was a cool idea too. I had glowing reviews. But at the end of the day, glowing reviews and emotional attachment doesn't pay the bills. And so I took about 6 weeks, and I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I made the tough decision to sell the bus. Took all the games out of it, stripped all my equipment out, and sold the bus to a company that was going to make it a training, mobile training module for working on the big wind turbines. And I kept a few of the games that I really liked from my childhood, but I sold the majority of the games, and I sold the bus, and I used that money to pay the rent ahead of time for about 4 months on my warehouse, and I used some of the money to pay for a service that designs websites specifically for party rental companies, and I bought a lot more tables and a lot more chairs and some wedding arches. And I thought about where the money really is in the rental business, and decided that it is in weddings and quinceaneras and baby showers and that kind of thing. And I still rent things for birthday parties. I've still got the snow cone and cotton candy machines and the yard games, and of course you use tables and chairs at birthday parties, but most birthday parties are pretty small. Your average customer is renting somewhere between $50 and $200 for a birthday party. And I realized that if I ever wanted to grow this company and have employees and be able to offer somebody a good job where it was a fun place to work at, where they liked coming to work, and I could be the kind of boss that I wanted to be when I was in retail management, but the corporate structure wouldn't allow me to be that boss, then I had to get bigger as a company and get bigger tickets. And so that's what I did. I rebranded myself, got the new website, and I really believe from watching a couple of YouTube channels, a guy named Adam, who his channel is called The Tent Guy, and then another guy named Lee, who has, I think he's changed the name of his channel a couple of times, but he is calling himself The Rental Guy. And another guy called Les, who used to kind of share a channel with Lee that they called the Rental Brothers, and now he's got his own channel now, and I don't remember what. Anyway, Lee and Les are in Canada, and Adam, the Tent Guy, is I think he's somewhere around New Jersey. Anyway, up in that area of the country, more New York, New Jersey, somewhere. Doesn't matter. I realized from watching them that if you wanted to be taken serious as a wedding rental company, you needed to get into tents. And so I bought what I could afford at the time, was a more industrial grade pop-up tent, not the kind that you buy at Walmart. It's a little heavier duty than that. That was 10 by 20. And I started running it, And with the new website and the new focus in my advertising towards weddings and that kind of thing, I started booking some small weddings, and I started, I was still doing a lot of $50, $100, $200 rentals, but I started doing $300, $400, $500, almost $600 rentals, where somebody would rent, 75 chairs and 20 tables and a wedding arch. And I really like getting those bigger checks, and I started to get a little more traction with the website, and the Google rankings slowly crept up as I got some reviews, and I was able to save enough to buy a legitimate party rental industrial grade tent. It's a 20 by 20 high peak marquee frame tent. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter at this point. And I wanted to do it right. I wanted to make sure it was safe. So I actually flew from where I live in Texas to a place in Charlotte, North Carolina that was one of the rental companies there, and one of the tent manufacturers were doing a tent school. So I went out there and I did that, and I came back and I made a big deal on my website and my social media pages about how I had gone to this tent school, and now I've got this tent. And I rented the tent one time, but wasn't getting a lot of traction with it, doing weddings and that kind of stuff. And graduation season hit, and the 6 weeks before and after graduation, there are 2 universities, 2 junior colleges, and like 7 high schools in or immediately around the city that I live in. And the business exploded. I had more than I could handle. I had to recruit friends, family, friends of friends to help me keep up washing tables and chairs and other things that I was renting out for graduation parties and baby showers and small weddings that were all happening at the same time in this 6-week period. I did more in that 6-week period than I had done either of the last 2 years in revenue generated dollars. And so I had some money to work with, and I got a call from a guy that was the president of a local car club, and they had rented some tables and chairs from me, and we'd worked on a couple of events together, and they had actually gotten to know me because of my rock chip business. And that's related to car clubs and that kind of thing. Anyway, they said, we're not happy with the tent company that we've been using for the last, 8, 10, 12 years, that we rent a really big tent for our biggest show of the year. What is the biggest tent that you have? And I told him, and he said, it's a 20 by 20, and he said, do you have other tents? And I said, well, I've got some other industrial grade pop-up tents, because by then I had 2 10 by 10s and 2 10 by 20s. And he says, okay, we would need all of those plus a little bit more. What would we have to pay you in order for you to get another one of those 20 by 20 rental industry grade tents? And we kind of negotiated back and forth, and we came up with a price for me doing the whole event with all my tents, that was about $100 less than what it would cost me to buy the other tent. And so I thought, this will get me another one of those really big tents that I really just can't afford right now. Basically for free, other than I'm not going to make any money doing this event, and I'm probably going to have to, hire some, one-day day laborer, temp service help in order to pull this off, and I'll have to pay for that. So maybe for $400 or $500 out of pocket, I could do this, and I'd have another tent that is $2,000 tent. So I took a chance and I did that. And a few days later, I got a call from a lady that is with a local retailer that has multiple branches here, and they specialize in merchandise, mostly clothing, but other stuff too, based on the biggest university that's here in town. It's a Division I school, and she said, we're having a parking lot sale, a specializing in or focusing on one of the brands of merchandise that we carry. It was Nike or Adidas or something like that, one of the major athletic apparel brands. And she said, we're going to put it in our parking lot, and we're not happy with again, with our tent rental company, the same one that the car club had not been real happy with. And she said, could you do a 20 by 40 tent? And I said, well, I'll be honest with you right now, what I've got is I've got one 20 by 20, but if you put two of them together, it would make a 20 by 40, and it's a fairly common practice in the tent industry, and I'm just getting into this. But depending on what price we work out, I would be willing to purchase another one, and we've got a couple of weeks to make sure it's here in time. I would drive to my supplier and pick up another tent. Just like I had done with the car club. Drove to the supplier and picked it up so that I'd have it in time. And so I submitted the bid, and she said, yeah, I can do that. And we got it, but the catch was that we couldn't stake them in the parking lot because there was asphalt, and so I had to figure out a way to secure the tent. And so I had to spend a bunch of money and buy extra hardware and weights and that kind of thing. But anyway, I pulled off this 20 by 20 tent for her, or 20 by 40, and I did the event, and she calls me back a couple of weeks later and says, okay, we need to do tents at 2 of our store locations multiple times during the football season, and we'd like to just work with one tent vendor. We'd like to keep working with you if we can negotiate the price. But the problem is, one of the locations we set the tent up in a small parking lot in the back of the store, and it has to be a 20 by 30 tent. Anything bigger won't fit. Anything smaller is not enough to handle it, because it's like half a block from the university, and on game day they're just slammed. So we really need a 20 by 30 tent for that location. What can you do for us? And so we negotiated the prices of putting up those tents and that kind of thing. And I once again jumped in the truck and drove 5 hours to my my tent vendor, and I bought a 20 by 30 tent. So now I have two 20 by 20s and a 20 by 30. And because of this, because of all these things that I did in this story, adapting from it being an arcade to it being a mobile arcade, to it being a party rental company, to it being a party rental company that had shifted its focus away from birthday parties to bigger events, to a party rental company that started doing these events for clubs and businesses that aren't related to weddings and quinceaneras and that kind of thing. I did more in tent rentals this year, and I've still got 3 months in the year, than I did business all of either of the first 2 years, and I've done already 5 times the business that my company did last year. And it's still not enough yet to where I can give up my rock chip business, although I think by next year it will be. But it is incredible how fast it is taking off since I shifted the focus of the business. And the point of all this entire story is you have to be willing to adapt. You have to be willing to change the focus of your business. You have to be willing to let go of things that you're emotionally attached to, that you've invested your time and effort and heart and soul into. And you have to be willing to go, what's going to work? What can I do? What's not going to work? This worked, let's keep doing it. This didn't work, let's back up and try something else. This sort of worked, let's tweak it. And I think that's crucial, that you have this adaptability no matter what business you're in. I don't care if you're starting a small used car lot, you're starting a plumbing company, you're selling Mary Kay Cosmetics, whatever. Don't be afraid to let go, reinvent yourself, and move on. And don't be afraid to try it, to work for yourself. You know, don't be stupid. Don't go out and take out $200,000 worth of business loans that you can't afford to pay back on an idea that you're not sure, maybe this is going to work, maybe it's not. Start with what you can. Don't go into debt. Build slowly. You know, if you're going to start a party rental company, buy 10 chairs and start advertising them on Facebook. If you're going to start a lawn mowing company, buy one push mower and a rake and a broom. Don't buy a truck, don't buy a trailer. Load the lawnmower in the back, in the trunk of your car, in the back of your SUV, whatever, and build from there, okay? And I guess that's all I've got this time. Next time I hope to get a little more into actual about my party rental business. But yeah, and I think it'll probably be a long time before anybody sees this video. But if you do see this video and you like it, and I'll try to keep future ones a little bit shorter, like the channel, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.